Happy whatever day it is, metal enthusiasts out there. Mark with Cardivox Academy here. And today I was like, what the heck am I going to make a video on? What am I going to do vocal analysis about? And then YouTube suggested, came in clutch, letting me know that Distant had a new track, Desolation. And I don't think I've ever talked about Distant on the channel before. If you're new to the channel, what I do is I'm a full-time vocal coach, specifically focused on harsh vocalization, teaching people how to do stuff like or safely and efficiently, pursuing their metal vocal dreams. And on the channel, predominantly I do vocal analysis. Predominantly I do vocal analysis of deathcore songs. Sometimes I branch out as well. And that's because there's just so much to vocally discuss. There's so much to go over in the deathcore world when it comes to vocals. So literally just decided to do this about 20 seconds ago. Okay, well, setting up the lights, everything 10 minutes ago. And I'm excited to hear what I'm going to hear. I saw Distant live a long time ago and they were crushingly heavy. Really enjoyed it. So let's just jump into it. Let's check out Desolation, Distant. Here we go.
Without war, peace can't be maintained. In this cold world of corrupted souls and brainwashed minds,
there is only one option left for us to do.
extinguish all who pervert their power. Extinguish all the elite. All the hates for their souls.
All the low life. Let the genocide begin.
That's a good place to start, right? That's a good place to talk. So already, I think they're trying to say something. I don't know. Could possibly be. But I'll stick to vocals. I'll stick to vocal analysis here. Cool video though. Interesting subject matter. So let's go ahead and let's talk about these vocals. So man, already there are three cool things for us to talk about. We've got a long, not super long, but like this guttural, like a at the beginning of the video. We've got some very wide open. Some people would maybe call these higher mid. I would say they're in the highs. They're in the rounded version of high. There's a little bit of true chord pitch behind them, right? And then we've got these really sort of pulled back but open low vocals. So obviously I'm not going to go over all three of those because I do want to listen to the song, but let's talk about a couple really cool and interesting things. I want to start off with those those brighter mids, those highs, right? That he was doing. Now I want to let's actually go back and listen to them because they kind of caught me a little bit off guard. Let's listen to them one more time. Yeah. Let's pause it there because we're going to talk about those next. So what I'm hearing here is a really nice, really well supported, really steady high vocal with some true pitch underneath it. Now we do have on these vocals some effects that are affecting. I'm firing myself. Some effects that are impacting what we're hearing. Now that's not to say that like there's no faking here. There's none of that. But we definitely hear. I'm not a production expert here, so please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear here is like a pretty aggressive compressor, right? Either some double tracking or a pretty heavy widener, and some additional like grit put on there, and that's pretty standard. That's not all that uncommon, right? But what we can hear is that there's this sort of especially at the onset of some of these vocals, right? It's very quick. And this, for some people, is a stylistic choice. They do it on purpose. For other people, it's just kind of how they learn to do their vocals. Because a lot of us, you know, I'm not sure how old the vocalist of Distant is, but a lot of the people like of my age range, like 30, like mid 30s to like early 40s, right? We learned just kind of by doing what works, and people still do that a lot. You know, but we have like this, what I kind of think of as like a traditional sort of like old school, like deathcore high vocal, this, and then there's a little bit, now I'm not going to sound exactly like him because I'm just approximating it with a first time listen, but there's like this, that's too much voice. Bury the weight. Kind of like as far as the balance, right? I'm not saying that's the exact same scream that he's doing, but a similar balance, right? We've got the grit and we've got the true voice in there coexisting in a way that doesn't hurt, in a way that's not painful, right? So when we're thinking about doing that, a lot of that is going to come down to where we're placing the voice, and a lot of it is also going to come down to how we're supporting it, right? There's so much more than that, but whenever you're thinking about a technique, whenever you're thinking about trying or, you know, sort of peeling apart a technique, you can take the complicated aspects of it and boil them down into 3 ingredients, right? You've got your breath support, you've got your phonation or the source of the scream, the tissues that are rattling, and then you've got your resonance where they're vibrating around, right? And any good vocal is going to be the proper balance of those 3. So supporting it properly, having the right vocal tract shape to get the bits to rattle around, and then of course, encouraging that sound to resonate in your face the way that you want. And a good way to do this, I was just working with a student before filming this, is to, if you've got decent grit, think about sort of like massaging the pitch in, right? A lot of times what'll happen is students will have a tone, they'll have some decent distortion, like a, right? And they'll just try to flip the true chord switch on to get voice in there, and it'll feel slapping, it'll feel aggressive. So they take this and then they just try to and that there's like this punch on the voice that's not very comfortable. But if instead what we do is we do exercises and movements that encourage the voice forward, I know that sounds silly, but encourage the voice forward, and think about just adding a little bit of presence of true chord phonation in there, like with our sense of, honestly, with our hearing, we'll find that it's a little bit more comfortable if we do it progressively. Now, I wouldn't say that these vocals are like super pitched, but you can hear a little bit of an undertone underneath them, which is really cool. But showing you how that like massaging it in works thing, you know, you've got your, again, this kind of requires you to have a baseline distortion that you can use. You don't have to be perfect at it, but you can use it. So you've got like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and I'm going to think about just kind of going while I do it. My ribs are open, my throat is relaxed. I'm engaging my my abdominal muscles slightly, so there's downward pelvic floor pressure. Right, so we get some of that. We'll talk about the lows afterwards, but I kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's my channel. I do what I want. Here we go. Gross, but so good, right? So let's go ahead and let's talk about the tone of those lows, right? Those are a very, like, what I think of as like a scowly low, like a very scowly low. Now, one thing that's important to understand is when we're doing vocals, when we are making these extreme vocal sounds, there are a lot of different ways to achieve our goals, right? A really good example of this is like a tunnel, right? You can do a tunnel like this. You can do a tunnel like this. You can do a tunnel. I'm not very good at this one. Curled to the side. Right? Mine doesn't sound that great. But my point with this is when I'm talking about this very scowly vocal, I'm going to show you the way that I would do it. from what we can see in the music video, it might be a little different than how he's doing it. The tongue shape is the same. He seems to be doing something not with this vocal. This snapshot is from a high. But I'm going to show you kind of how I would do it. And when I say scally vocal, I feel like if we were to replace his distortion with just pure pitch, it sounds very raw, raw, I'm mad, I'm angry, raw, raw, I'm mad, I'm angry, raw, raw. It's got that scally, that sort of vibe, right? And a really good way to start making, you know, a lower or a mid tone more interesting without having to do a bunch of crazy stuff in your throat is to think about a balance of two articulation tools, and one of those is the curl of the tongue, like specifically like a retroflex motion. You can connect the tongue to the top, or you can disconnect it. That's going to have different tones, right? So connected, so the tip of my tongue, the tongue blade is touching that little ridge behind my little ridge. You know what? Here we go. Let's do it. Let's do it, folks. I'd like you to meet my friend, John McCormick. It's a long story why I call him that. But basically, in our vocal anatomy, you can see that our tongue, here it is, you can see that our tongue takes up, it's hard to point because it's flipped. Our tongue takes up a lot of space. But in this image, right, let me use my right hand, we've got our teeth right here. We've got this bone, which is called the maxilla, right? And we've got this little ridge, which isn't too pronounced in this model here, but that's called our alveolar ridge, right? And so we can kind of think of these like the tooth, the ridge, the little divot, and then the smooth back of the hard palate as different points of tone control on our vocal, right? So if I take this, what I'll do is I'll do this is bending my brain because the camera is flipping it, right? So what I'll do is I'll do tooth, ridge, divot, center, connected, right? And that's going to sound like this. Again, retroflex motion, tooth, ridge, divot, center. Now if I do that disconnected, so it's still pointing there, but it's not touching. You can hear that it gives it different tonal qualities. So that's number one. That's one of the things that we can think of, right? Number two is the curvature. There's probably a better word for this, but not like the size of the opening of the mouth, the aperture, but the position of the lips. Maybe armature would be the word for that. But curled in versus curled out, right? And so if I take, I'll do tongue. I'll do tongue in the divot, that space behind the alveolar ridge, because I think that will be a good example. So to be clear, I'm placing my tongue in this spot right here, right? This spot behind the teeth, behind that ridge, this spot right here, right? We're going, and I'm going to keep it connected. I'm going to keep it connected for all these, right? So lips in. Lips neutral. Lips puckered. So if you think about that, and there are infinite possibilities, but we have teeth, ridge, divot, center. So that's 4. Now we do tongue connected and disconnected. That's 8, right? And then we do lips curled, lips neutral, lips pursed or puckered. Someone really good at math can tell me in the comments below how many combinations that is. And that can have a really impactful, that can have a huge impact on our voice. If I were to guess from a first time listen, which I may be wrong, I would say lips kind of curled back, probably pointing at the divot, not connected. And the lips, I would curl them in. It doesn't look like he's curling them in. I probably would, just not because my way is better, but that's just what I would do to get this, like, you know, this very pouty bass, right? So that's a long-winded way of saying there are different ways that you can approach these sounds. And what is the right way? That's the best thing about metal vocals, the way that works. If it doesn't harm your voice or cause you any, pain or strain or changes in your speaking voice, and it sounds cool, then you're doing it right. That's it. Let's keep going. His voice sounds very relaxed. Now, what do I mean by that? Right? Because a lot of vocalization has, I didn't come up with this term. One of my students came up with it. I wish I could remember who it was. But athletic activation, right? And a good example of that is like any sport, really, basketball, right? If you were playing basketball or football or tennis or hockey, and you were truly fully relaxed, you'd be laying on the floor. That wouldn't work, right? And in fact, when we are playing these sports, there are moments where our muscles are quite engaged, right? Like, let's say I never did any contact sports or anything. Well, not like traditionally, but I used to be a member of a group called the Society for Creative Anachronism. And basically what that meant is we got in plastic armor with bunches of rattan and shields and beat the heck out of each other. Not quite LARPing, because we weren't pretending to be anybody else. Like I had a name out there. I truthfully don't remember what it was. But mostly we were just there to have fun, right? So that's kind of my experience. And so, I would have my shield like this, and I'd have my rattan. There are pictures out there of me somewhere, right? I'd have my shield and I'd have my rattan. I wasn't very good, by the way. I was usually on the shield wall. Nothing against my shield wall homies. That's just where I was most of the time, right? But there were times where like I would get broken off, and you might have to shove somebody. You might have to push them. One of my favorite techniques was I had my little sword piece of rattan with a metal basket, and I would drop it, and the string would be attached to my wrist, and my shield had a crossbar. It was basically just like a traffic sign that was painted and made to look really nice with the group logo on it. And I would grab that bar and I'd smack people in the I would smack people in the face with it. Bam! Like pretty hard, right? And when I'm doing that, you have to lean down. You have to engage your core muscles. You push with your back legs, because my goal was to knock them down, to put them on the ground, right? Some people might say that was too much force, but we were out there having a good time, right? So I would lean in, smack, right? So if I was to say, like, I want to do that as a relaxed fluid motion, but if I was to tell you that all my muscles were relaxed, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. I'm bringing it back to metal vocals, I promise. When we are doing metal vocals, if I do a sound like this, it would be a lie if I was like, I'm entirely relaxed. I'm totally relaxed. Because in actuality, the tissues above my vocal cords are squeezed and engaged. But only the muscles I need are engaged. Now, to bring this back here, the vocalist sounds like he is as athletically engaged as possible. Only the stuff he needs to use sounds engaged. It's almost as if, like, when I'm listening to his, and I mean this in a very good way, I really like the way he sounds. When I'm listening to his vocals, I almost hear him doing it like by request at a party. And here's what I mean, right? Let's say you were at a party, and this is actually something I go through my students with. Let's say you're at a party, you're having some drinks, you're having a good time. Don't drink while you practice. And somebody's like, yo, do that noise that you do. And you're like, oh my God. All right. Just give me a second. Okay. Here's the voice. Here we go. I'll do the noise and then everybody leave me alone. Here we go. All right. There. Do you see how casual my body was? And they're like, no, do the low one. Oh my God. You should have told me the first time. Okay, here we go. right? There is not a lot of excess engagement there. This can actually, you know, one thing that you will run into is, you know, people will be like, just relax. And they're like, and you'll say, how? How do I relax? One thing to do is to play out a scenario in your head that you're at a party or that, you know, you're sitting on a porch and you think more about that than the actual vocal technique. And to me, I feel like I'm hearing this guy like do this super casually, tons of relaxation in his body. And part of the reason I'm hearing that is because so many of his tones have a strong mid-range. Now, again, there's some EQ going on here. Everything's EQ'd. You're not going to listen to a song really without some EQ work on it. Maybe. But there's such a strong mid-range, and a good mid-range comes from a relaxed, balanced, and open vocal tract. Like if I have a really narrow vocal tract on a high vocal, it's all high. It's all high end. If I relax that a little bit, see how there's more mid-range, more darkness in that tone. And I hear so much of that with him here. And that makes sense with what I saw when he played live, because there was a lot of movement in his body, a lot of not rigid movement, a lot of fluid movement in his body. So I want you to listen to that moving forward. I want you to listen to some of that open roundedness of tone. Let's keep going. Yeah. You know I'm going to pause there. Don't worry, I'll go back so we can hear that transition, because we can tell something cool is happening here. That'd be a cool t-shirt. That'd be a really sick t-shirt. I'm guessing that eye is going to open, maybe. But anyways, so there are two things I want to talk about, and they're kind of related to each other. So he did like these kind of like mid pig squeals, right? I want to talk about a good way to practice those, right? And we also heard him do it with fear. Oh, I love the way he pronounced fear. It was now my pig squeals are not the squealiest, right? I can make some pretty gnarly pig squeals, but usually it's usually not as much of a thing I do, but I teach a lot of people how to do them, right? So with pig squeals, what we're doing is we're like really bringing forth overtones, right? Overtone singing, which is not my expertise, right, is a really good example of what a pig squeal can sound like. Now, there are high pig squeals, there are mid, low, but with all of them, as far as I'm aware, what we're doing is we're taking the voice, which is a stack of thousands of frequencies. When we make any noise, we're hearing thousands upon thousands. But in fact, I can show you. Let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So this is the software that I use. This is me recording my voice right now. So if we look at these colors, right? These colors are an example. A measure is a spectrogram. Spectrogram. I forget. But these colors represent the frequencies that are the strongest in my voice. So now it's going to be pretty zoomed out. Can I zoom in while it's recording? Oh, I can. Hell yeah. So if I take this, we can hear, or we can see, that there's a lot chilling down at like the 200 and 400, and then from like 2000 to 4000, like that range of hertz is very strong, right? So if I take this now, let's take a vocalization. Let's do like E. Do you see how I'm isolating those frequencies? What I'm doing is now this isn't like the only way to do this sort of thing. This is just the way that I do it. I'm curling the tongue back, putting it on that ridge that I talked about earlier, right? And I'm saying wee, 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 right? And I'm looking for a spot where there's this really bright, pingy sound. What if I do that with a metal vocal, right? Right? Kind of sounds cool. Not the best pig squeal in the world, but it ain't bad. Hey, it's usable. I'd put it on a song. So let's say I just do a mid. Let's say I should just say like wee, but in a vocal. Wee. Now a pig squeal. Wee. Wee. You can see those changes, right? The isolation of the frequencies. So that's essentially what we're doing. So, if you're trying to work on your pig squeals, what you can do is you can play around with finding overtones with your clean voice, right? You can do this with Kargay as well to really accentuate. And then try that with a harsh vocal. And then you'll kind of get somewhere. I really love the way, his are much stronger than mine. And I really love the way he's like rapping, again, with fear. He's rapping the articulation around that. Anyways, let's keep going. We'll go back a little bit. We'll go back. Oh yeah, let's go back to fear. Let's hear it. That was a really cool use of the tongue roll. So the tongue roll is something that's been used in metal vocals for a long time. Travis Ryan has done it in Cattle Decapitation. Alex Terrible has done it. Will Ramos has done it. But that's a thing that I kind of get bored of. Not tongue rolls, but when people say that, when I point out in a video, oh, that's really cool, and somebody's like, actually, this person did it first. I'm like, oh, well, we could take that back forever. The Vikings were doing vocal distortion, right? Like who cares who did it first? How well is it being used now, right? And this is a really good use of it, because here's the thing about Distant. Here's the thing about their music. Their music is all heavy, all aggression, all the time, overall, right? And so with this song, if he had just done, I don't remember exactly the pattern of the word, but if he had just done like, into that big heavy part, it would have been cool. I would have liked it, but it kind of would have been doing the same thing the rest of the song is doing. But just placing that little tongue roll in there, right? Let's go back and listen to it. It had, let's go right here. It made it not boring. I'll just put it that way. It made it interesting, right? So tongue rolls in metal vocals, sure, been used all the time. Tongue roll used at the very end to make the end of the song hit that much harder, to bring you back in when you haven't heard one in the track so far. And then we have like, the very quick of the tongue roll and then the slow moving action of the guitars. Very well done. Very classy choice. Let's hear it again. dirty track. A lot of really great options too, or opportunities to talk about the more, I guess we can say, sciencey side of vocalization. So because this song, I learned about it 40 minutes ago, a little bit more ranty, but a little bit more maybe in depth than my videos tend to be. You know, we talked a lot about tongue position, mouth shape. We talked about delivery. We talked about frequency, pig squeals. We talked about a lot in this video, and great song from Distant. If you haven't seen Distant live, I highly suggest you do, because the music this heavy in person, oh, granted it was a pretty big stage when I saw them, they had it was a really great sound system, you know, but they're going to sound heavy anywhere. So very excited for anything else these guys have coming out. Very excited for anything else these guys have coming out. If this video was helpful, like, share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. If you want to learn how to do metal vocals, check out cardivoxacademy.com. It's my full-time job. I've been teaching for 6 years, 5 years. I don't know. Anyways, thank you all for hanging. I got more work to do. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.